Hi folks, welcome back to the channel and to another DJI Mini 3 video. So we recently updated to the latest firmware and the latest Fly app version 1.6.6, and I want to do another test today. Now I have recently been having issues flying both the Mini 2 and the Mini 3 Pro with various interference problems, and I know that many of you have had these issues as well. So we did a test flight a couple of days ago with the Mini 3 Pro on the latest firmware, and I thought that some of these issues have been resolved. Now, some of you in the comments have perhaps suggested otherwise. So what I thought we'd do today is do an urban test, because the last test I did was just over trees, although I have had issues even in those sorts of flights previously. But we're going to fly over heavy interference today, houses and properties and stuff where there's a lot of Wi-Fi and what have you, and see if we can really try and push this firmware through its paces. Now, a few people mentioned that I'm not getting anywhere near 12 kilometers. Obviously, I couldn't do that in the UK anyway, because we have to stay within visual line of sight. But even on the best of days, with no glitches and no bugs, you're not going to get to the ranges that DJI say you're going to be able to get to. I don't know how they conduct their tests to get to those ranges, but I've never got anywhere close. I'm not after getting close to 12 kilometers, I'm just after getting a flight that is somewhat similar to the flights I used to be able to get. So let's go ahead now, let's get the drone up in the air outside, start flying over some high interference areas and see what we can push out of the firmware. Now, first of all, you're going to see me at the start here just moving the drone back and forth, and I tend to do this before running various tests and what have you, and all I'm doing is just getting a feeling for the current wind conditions. There's nothing worse than pushing your drone out, having a nice flight, and then when it's time to come home, finding out, oh no, you're fighting against the wind and you're in a lot of trouble. Okay, so yes, there are various apps and that you can use that are not always reliable because they tend to not be updated instantly. And I just find a quick fly around the place before actually sending the drone off is just an easy way to see what the sorts of conditions are that you're flying in. But I'm happy with the wind. In fact, there was no breeze whatsoever. So what I'm doing now is just moving over the first area. And this is an area I typically get heavy interference. I don't know what's going on in the houses, and there's some commercial properties underneath as well where I'm currently situated, but there does tend to be a lot of Wi-Fi dropouts when I fly over this region. And you can see there is a little bit of lag there as I turn the drone around. But in all honesty, it's nowhere near as bad as it has been in the past when I've done these sorts of tests. So at this point, I'm happy the signal is still strong and I'm going to move on. I've also started at a height of 50 meters. Now, some will say you need to go to a higher altitude when you're doing an urban test, but there's no reason to rush to do that. As the signal starts to drop, then you can slowly start to increase that altitude. Yes, at a higher altitude, you're going to get a better connection, but as the signal is only just starting to drop now, I'm just going to raise the altitude at this time. But we've already pushed to 400 meters. Which is pretty encouraging, because I've done tests like this recently on the previous firmware and I've already had the screen completely cutting out, the image being lost and the drone issuing return to home automatically. So the fact that isn't happening is a good sign. And if you are enjoying this DJI Mini 3 video, then please do remember to subscribe to my channel. I do have lots planned going forward, so it'd be great to keep you guys notified of that. And yes, I do know that the image is showing a lot of fields right now, but that's only because of how I've got the camera set up to protect people's privacy. I am currently over an area of very high interference, and at 420 meters away, I'm very happy with the fact that I've still got full signal bars right now. And I do tend to turn the drone around simply because the way the antennae are positioned in the drone, you can sometimes get a weaker connection as you're moving the drone back towards the controller rather than moving away from it. So yeah, turning the drone around on these tests and flying at different or in different directions is a great way to really push it to its utmost in terms of its limits and what have you. So we've just gone over 500 meters now, and we have dropped those signals down to 2 bars. I do want to try and see if I can push it a little bit more, but obviously here in the UK we have to be careful with how far we fly because of the visual line of sight regulations. So I've managed to get down there to the red, and that was just about the 500 meter mark. Again, I fully understand it's a far cry from the 12 kilometers that DJI suggests that you can reach with this drone, but that is of course in absolute pinpoint perfect conditions, which none of us are ever going to find. And this is not only the sort of conditions that aren't perfect, but it's the kind of conditions that actually have additional interference than what I'm used to flying in. So the fact I'm still getting to 500 meters, and okay, the signal itself is struggling, the actual transmission and the image is not faring too bad, I've got to say. Yes, there's a little bit of lag, as you can see, but there haven't been any dropouts whatsoever. And this is really the limit, you know, that I can push the drone in terms of where it's legal to fly and what have you. Sometimes though, you know, transmission can be a funny thing, and there can be no rhyme nor reason to why it is that you're getting various interference issues. What I've done is brought the drone back to the home point and carried on the flight in the opposite direction, where there's at least visibly it looks like there'd be a lot less interference. There's more fields, there's less houses, but for whatever reason on this side I do seem to be getting dropouts far more regularly, even from 200 meters. So you can see we're just over 400 meters now, and we have pretty much dropped the signal down as low as it can go without actually losing the transmission altogether. So I'm going to raise the height again here, but it's just kind of strange how I think the drone performed really well over those large collection of houses we flew over first. Yes, we had some dropouts as to be expected, but overall it did a grand job. But on this side, where there's only a few houses and much more in terms of field and what have you, we do seem to be getting even worse signal problems. And I've still got full line of sight of the drone, so I can see that the controller is pointed directly towards it. And yeah, as I mentioned, when you turn the drone back around so that it's facing towards you, that tends to be when you get the worst signal dropouts, and you can see that that is happening even now as we are getting ever closer back to the home point. We're just struggling to get that signal back, and we're at quite a high altitude at this point as well. However, I do believe this is an improvement over what I was able to achieve with previous firmware. I understand that not everybody is agreeing with me on that, and that some of you are still having issues, and even I still believe there is a ways to go here, and that DJI need to do a little bit more if they can to try and just correct some of the problems that people have been facing. But overall, I am quite happy that we managed to push the DJI Mini 3 over this high interference area. We got to over 500 meters and still didn't lose our transmission image, so that is very encouraging and definitely improvement of what I was experiencing before the update. But thank you so much for watching today. Let me know your own experiences as always down below with your drone, and in particular if you're flying on this firmware or app version. Have a wonderful day. Don't forget to drop a like if you did find the video helpful. That really does support me, and I'll see you next time for more Mini 3 Pro.